All right, so I just got the shipment in from Baker Creek Seeds. And it's rareseeds.com. I guess this is a plug. Yeah, best seed company that I've ever bought seeds from. They've got the greatest catalog, I think, on planet Earth, and I just got a whole bunch of seeds for this year's garden. And it is April 2nd. If you look outside, at the bases of trees, underneath, at the bases of retaining walls, unkept areas where woods open up into grass, you'll find onion grass all around. And if you dig them up, find tiny onions, no bigger than an M&M or a Skittle, and just clean them off and eat them right there. They taste amazing. And so that's a sign to begin planting. So I'll show you what I purchased. Now, these with the black are Baker Creek, in addition to this one and this one. There's a couple other ones like this one and this one that I purchased at another store. Baker Creek is all heirloom. The collection is amazing. For example, I got these two corns because they were new to their catalog, and I'm a collector myself, so I purchased them, and I'm gonna put them away in a safe space where they will last for years and years to come. So in the next part of this video, I'll show you my planting methods, but I'll show you what I plan to do. First of all, I'm starting with this corn. I'm using a method called Three Sisters planting, and it is corn, squash, and beans. The beans are nitrogen fixators, meaning they put nitrogen into the ground. Corn is a heavy feeder, and so I'm not growing any bush variety beans. I'm growing poles, climbers, runners, and they climb up the corn. And the squash, they are a vine plant which grow horizontally, laterally, whatever you want to say, and they provide ground cover. And so when you do your research, you find that you can only grow one corn in a field. You don't want them to cross-pollinate. This is maize, morado, or culi corn. It's from Guatemala, and it is the blackest corn known to man. You can actually see there's a little bit of purple in there. It means it's high in antioxidants, very, very high in antioxidants. And so I'm choosing to grow this corn this year. There's 150 seeds. I can grow, I'll get into the specifics, but I can grow 120 pieces of corn in a 30 by 10 area, and that's what I'm doing. And so I have this Atlantic Giant. It grows up to 500 pounds. We'll see what I can do this year. This is spaghetti squash. This is an early squash, and this was new to their catalog, and this is one that I found in the store. So let me just tell you, why do I have 5 varieties of squash? Well, there's 4 different types of squash, 4 species of squash. They provide good information on the back, and it's all of the family Cucurbita, okay? And here we have Maxima, Peppo, Mixta, and this one is Moscata. Now, now I'm pretty sure this is the case with squash, but the species do not cross-pollinate. I do have 2 Peppo, I'll get back to that one. The species do not cross-pollinate, meaning I can grow them in the same field right next to each other, and they will not cross-pollinate. Therefore, see, I grow for seeds. So, for example, this corn, I'll show you my corn in the next part of the video. That I grew last year, I grew Hopi blue corn, and I took 3 bags just like this, and I turned it into, I ate some of the corn was lost, and I have maybe 10 ears of corn, which is 1,000 seeds. So my goal is to have seeds for next year of each of these varieties, and then the next year I'll choose different varieties, and so That way, if I have thousands of seeds for species, I can really start get into, you know, covering a lot of acreage with these, because purchasing each of these bags to cover, say, 10 acres of farming, it gets expensive, very expensive. But I have two Peppos, Cucurbita Peppo. This one, let's see if it's the earliest squash. I think it's a 40-day squash. I think that's how fast it matures. I'm not sure. See, look at that, 500 to 1,000 pounds each. That's crazy. And this is spaghetti squash from Japan. And this one will be 65 to 90-day squash. Sometimes they say, sometimes they don't. It says it on the website. Now on to the beans. And I have to double check this succotash bean and the runner beans, the Benchmasters. These runner beans can grow 10 feet tall. And it's just amazing. So these are all beans you've probably never heard of. And that's why I bought them, because I can grow them all next to each other. And like I said, I have to double check the beans just to be sure, but I'm 100% sure that the squash do not cross-pollinate. And so, well, I know for sure because these beans, for example, let's take a look at them. Look at the species. Like I said, I have to check the succotash and that one because they are the same genus. But if we look, they're the same genus, different species. So technically they shouldn't cross-pollinate, but that isn't always true. This one, completely different genus. Completely different genus. It's right there, genus, species. Same story, different genus, different species. So I can grow all these beans. They all come from Baker Creek because they strive to collect these rare, they're like a living seed bank. They strive to collect all these rare strains. And so I'm growing all these, and I'm growing some radishes. Radishes are the fastest producing that there is. 1,000-head kale is supposed to be largest and most bountiful. Early beets, peas, jalapenos. I've got some other things, some melons, yellow tomatoes. They gave me some free. See, they give you, when you order seeds, they give you some free seeds. It's nice. I've got arugula, and I purchased these not knowing what I was gonna purchase from Baker Creek, but yeah, this is what I'm doing. So I'm about to get into Three Sisters planting and what it entails. And then I'll show you how I germinate my seeds. But this year I'm deciding to germinate to give the squash a head start. I found that the squash plants are in the system which I grow, they're the most difficult to really have them thrive. So I'm going to be germinating them early. It's April 2nd. Tend to plant with somewhere around the first week of May. And I'm probably going to begin the jalapenos and the beets, because the peas and I might start the kales, but the radish and the peas, they'll be the first ones to produce. So I'm not worried about that. And I don't worry about starting the corn or the beans early. It's a lot of work. To have 120 cups with corn in it, it's just, it would be crazy. So, yeah. Moving on to the next part, I'll show you my drawings. All right, let me show you. Let me get out of the light first. Let me show you how I plant the garden. So my setup right here, I'm in the corner of the yard. And where I plan to grow the corn, which is right here. It's a 30 by 10 foot space. And as we go towards the edge of the yard, which would be here, it was just an old corner of the yard that had overgrown with pricker bushes and all sorts of whatnot. I cleared out, and it's on a slope. And so what you see right here is a rock retaining wall that I built with field stone that I just found on the side of the road. I put all that together. Up here is another level. I'll see if I can include pictures, but up here is another level that I have with just a piece of wood holding it. It helps to flatten out the soil. If you're on a slope, it helps to flatten everything out so that it's easier to water, so the water actually becomes retained, and there's dividers for all the different crops. You could plant peas and beets here. You could plant kale and radish here. You can plant carrots and spinach here, and so on and so forth. But here, this area is where I plant a 30 by 10 foot area, a perfect rectangle, is where I plant my corn, beans, and squash. And I model it after the Three Sisters method, which was done by the indigenous Americans of the Northeast, Midwest. It all varies. If you look at the Hopi, the way they grow is different than the Three Sisters, but they still grow the Three Sisters, just not in the same fashion. And now these oval represent the corn. There's maybe 5, 6, maybe up to 7. The thing with the corn is the tassels, which are the things that look like oats on the top of the corn. They have to fall and touch the silk, and that's how they germinate. So they have to be close enough to each other to germinate each other. So there has to be enough corn in the center, and then surrounding the corn is the beans. That's what the X's represent. And the beans, whether they're bush or pole variety, the pole variety have to climb up the corn. And the beans are nitrogen fixators. They put nitrogen into the soil. The corn is a nitrogen feeder. It feeds very heavily on nitrogen. And the rectangles represent any type of squash plant, whether it be melon, watermelon, or any of the 4 types of squash. And they go around it, and they provide ground cover and almost a defense to some pests, some whatever. But so I'm not doing it this way. I've tried different methods over the years, and I've kind of adapted some type of way. And I should have finished the drawing, but I didn't. As you can see, this would be the 30 by 10 foot area, 30 feet long, 10 feet wide. And I have these numbers written out. So again, same rule applies with the corn being the oval, the beans being the X. And there's a 1 foot space in between corn and a 1 foot space in between beans. So it's a 6-inch space in between each other. And from the fence line of my garden, I have a 4-foot fence. You just buy wire fence at Home Depot and put it together with 2x4s that you find laying around. 2x4s, 4x4s, whatever you could find. So from the fence to the corn, I leave 2 feet, 1 foot in between, and I bring the row all the way down 30 feet. So there's 60 corn and 60 beans in this row in a 30-foot span. And, you know, I haven't exactly figured out how I'm going to arrange these. I'll know once I see how the plants do in their growing stage. The first month or, 4 to 6 weeks. But these squares represent the squash. And in between the double rows, this is also a double row, I put 4 feet. And in this 4 feet space is where I'll put the vine plants. Here, possibly here, and possibly here. Now, if I had more space, if I had a full acre field, or imagine, if I had a full field, you could just duplicate this all the way. A line of 2, squash filling the middle, a line of 2, squash filling the middle, another 2 feet, a line of 2, and so on and so forth. And that's the Three Sisters method. And what I was talking about, here's how I germinate them. So I'm germinating all 10 of these, the honey nut squash. Now, as you can see, some of the seeds might be defective, like this one or this one. And I don't use the plastic bags. I try and not be wasteful, so I use these takeout containers. They come in different sizes. You get them in many takeout places. You can even find them in supermarkets like the you know, pasta salads and whatnot. So these are the large ones that I use for the corn, because I'll be germinating 150 corn. And what I do is I throw soil in there and water, and I saturate the soil and I squeeze some of the water out. Put the soil in there, and I let them what I call pop. So as soon as you see the live parts of the seed start to pop out of the shell, that means you know it's alive and you can put it in the ground a couple days later. But I wait until a week or two into May, depending on when the frosts hit in my area. And so I'll put a little bit of water on the paper towel, let the seeds germinate, blah, blah, blah. And then, I mean, here's what I'm growing. Again, the pumpkins there. And I'm also growing melons. I'm germinating melons. I'm not including them. I'm putting them somewhere else. And this is a Maldives melon that I'm also trying. I like, this one also comes from Baker Creek, as you can see. It just doesn't have the picture on it. I love Baker Creek because they have all the rare ones. And their magazine is 100, 200 pages long. And yeah, so I'll show you how I plan. Once they germinate, I put them into a solo cup filled with soil. But that also gives me a reason to show off my sweet potatoes. Sorry, I should keep it this way. And as you can see, the sweet potato is literally just that, a sweet potato with toothpicks in it. Look at all those roots. You put it in water, and after a few months, I think this is 2 months worth of growth, and it'll give you little sprouts right there. And after that, you cut the sprouts at the base once they reach a certain height. You put them in water, and they'll grow roots. And then once they grow enough roots, you put them in a cup, and then grow from there. There is some die-off, but that was from, as you can see, there's a little bit of die-off here. Sometimes I don't stay on top of the water. The water level's good today, but if the water level, they drink this water really fast. If the water gets too low, anyways, this is very healthy plant, and it's in a solo cup, and I put a hole in the bottom, and I put it near on a windowsill, and it grows. And that's how you grow sweet potatoes. And I have many plants. And also, the next thing that I want to show you is longevity spinach. I have a longevity spinach plant that I took some cuttings from. Now, this is a perennial spinach plant. You take the baby leaves and you eat them. They taste like grass. And as you can see, they just started to throw roots off after about a week. And the reason I'm showing you this is because there's something I found in Baker Creek, and this is why it's important to understand more than just yellow corn and, you know, red tomatoes, the beefsteak tomatoes, because this is a perennial kale. I don't know if you can see that under the name Homesteader's Kaleidoscope. Perennial kale. So yeah. Which is another thing that I'm growing. And what I'll do is I'll fill these up with soil. This comes in a, what is it called? A germination station. It comes with a heating mat and a dome lid on it to make a terrarium. I have that growing a whole bunch of citrus that I pulled from seeds. But what I'll do is I'll put some soil in there and I'll divvy it up between jalapenos, beets, and kale. And yeah, I really like beets. They're my favorite, absolute favorite vegetable to juice. They give me tons of energy. They're a vasodilator. Add it with a little bit of kale and the citrus, some ginger. Yeah. So that's one way that I plan to survive the Grand Solar Minimum. And I will do a news update on all the flooding in the Midwest, and to show just how bad the food is. All the corn is dying. they're not going to be able to plant, and cows are dying, and yeah, grain solar minimum. This is how you survive. This is how you survive, right here. Resourcefulness, knowledge, training. People who try and do this stuff their first year out, they're not going to fare very, very well. There's a lot of learning to this. A lot of simple things that you think are obvious, that you think should know, but it's so easy to make mistakes when caring for just the area that I showed. I've made countless mistakes, and I've been going on 5 years, but I can finally say that after 5 years, I finally got a grasp for the timing of everything, how to take care of everything, what to look for, and everybody's learning curve is going to be different. I'm not saying that somebody that gets into it their first year isn't going to be able to grow, you know. Lynette Zhang said that on 1 acre with a house on it, she can provide for 10 people. I believe it. The question is, how many mistakes will you make until you reach that level of proficiency? And that's why it's important to practice now. Anyways, good luck. And buy your seeds from Baker Creek. They're awesome.